Tutankhamun's spectacular treasures, for the very first time since their discovery a century ago, all 5,398 objects are being brought together in a new billion-dollar museum. This means many of these incredible artifacts will be seen by human eyes for the first time in 100 years. As they're prepared for display, scientists are using the latest imaging and forensic technology to unlock long-buried mysteries, finally revealing the man behind the golden mask. The level of detail being uncovered is simply astonishing. But this grand reunion of treasures is revealing more than just artistic brilliance. Some of Tutankhamun's most personal items suggest a pharaoh whose life was racked by illness. Mysterious human remains, buried alongside him, are exposing the dark and complex secrets of his royal family tree. It turns out he had a child with his own sister. Together, these discoveries paint a tragic picture, suggesting that Tutankhamun and his family were genetically destined to die out. What they left behind is a magnificent, yet bittersweet, legacy. Tutankhamun was the last pharaoh of his royal family line. He died at just 19 years old, leaving no heirs to continue his dynasty. Within a few decades of his death, his entire lineage collapsed and vanished from the pages of history. Ancient Egyptian records, which were so meticulously kept, suddenly ceased to even mention the boy king. Tutankhamun, his father Akhenaten, and his successor were systematically erased from the official king lists and monuments. It was as if they never existed. For centuries, experts have been baffled. How could the most famous king of ancient Egypt, whose tomb is a household name today, and his entire family, just disappear without a trace? Now, the most comprehensive forensic examinations ever conducted on Tutankhamun's treasures are helping to finally unravel this ancient mystery. And it's his most personal items, many of which have never been seen before by the public, that are shedding remarkable new light on Tutankhamun's short and troubled life. Imagine custom-made shoes, unlike any others found from ancient Egypt, designed to accommodate a physical deformity. Picture a huge collection of walking sticks, over 100 of them, hidden away for decades in the dusty basement of the Cairo Museum. And then there's the most unexpected and deeply unsettling discovery from the pharaoh's tomb, to tiny, mummified human fetuses buried with him for eternity. The evidence from these finds reveals a life filled with chronic pain and tragic personal loss. It points to a complex and disturbing family tree and exposes the intense political battles that ultimately sentenced the young pharaoh to 3,000 years of oblivion. Today, gathered from museums all across Egypt, every single one of Tutankhamun's items is on its way to be reunited at the new Grand Egyptian Museum. This is the first time they will all be under one roof since the archaeologist Howard Carter first opened the young pharaoh's tomb back in 1922. Carter discovered more than 5,000 objects, a staggering collection, but only a fraction have ever been on public display until now. Egyptologist Chris Nanton is one of the first people to witness some of the objects that have been hidden in the vaults of the old Cairo Museum for nearly a century. He recognizes the immense significance of this moment. A lot of these things are going to be seen for the first time here in the Grand Egyptian Museum. But before they go on display, they are all being meticulously looked at, assessed for their state of conservation, and where restoration work is required. That work is happening right here. For the scientists and conservators, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They can finally analyze all the objects up close, together, before the new museum opens its doors to the public. The potential for discovery is enormous, yet, among the thousands of golden, jeweled, and masterfully crafted artifacts, there was one particular discovery that disturbed Howard Carter more than any other. He recorded his unease in his personal journals, which are now carefully preserved at the Griffith Institute in Oxford, England. Looking through these historical records, we get a glimpse into Carter's mind. One section of his published report deals with what were perhaps the most poignant objects he came across in the entire tomb. Inside the treasury, a small room packed with priceless goods, Carter found the heart-wrenching evidence that Tutankhamun had not been buried alone. The pharaoh who died with no living heirs was accompanied into the afterlife by the mummified remains of his stillborn daughters. This discovery adds a profound layer of tragedy to his story. It wasn't just a king who died young. It was a father who had lost his children and the future of his entire dynasty. These tiny mummies, long kept from public view, are now central to understanding the boy king's fate. Modern CT scans have revealed their gestational ages, one at about 5 months, the other nearing full term. DNA analysis has confirmed they were indeed Tutankhamun's children, and their mother was his wife, Ankhesenamun. But the analysis also confirmed another shocking fact. Ankhesenamun was Tutankhamun's half-sister. They shared the same father, the controversial pharaoh Akhenaten. This revelation about incestuous marriage wasn't unusual for Egyptian royalty, who believed it kept the bloodline pure. However, we now know it has devastating genetic consequences. Tutankhamun himself was the product of such a union. His parents were brother and sister. This genetic inheritance likely contributed to his own health problems, including a clubfoot and a bone disease that would have made walking painful without his canes. It also dramatically increased the chances of his children having lethal genetic defects, explaining the tragic loss of his two daughters and the end of his family line. The story gets even more complex. These family secrets were a political liability. After Tutankhamun's death, the new ruling powers wanted to erase the memory of his unconventional family and their religious revolution. This is why his name was chiseled off monuments and left out of official histories. By burying Tutankhamun in a small, hastily prepared tomb and silencing his legacy, his successors hoped to turn back the clock. For 3 millennia, they succeeded, but they couldn't erase his treasures. Ironically, the attempt to forget Tutankhamun is what ultimately preserved him. His relatively modest tomb was overlooked by tomb robbers and remained sealed until 1922, and now, the very artifacts buried with him to secure his journey to the afterlife are telling us the true story of his life, a story of physical pain, profound loss, and political intrigue. The boy king, once erased from history, is now the most famous pharaoh of them all, his legacy more powerful than ever. The treasures in this new museum aren't just beautiful objects. They are the surviving words of a story that someone tried very hard to silence. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into the past as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into history's greatest mysteries. See you next time.